The film I read maybe a year and a half, 2 years before that, Tony Pitts. I met Kevin and I met Tony Pitts and I read the script, and it was so extraordinary. As I say, it wasn't in any specific order. It was very much a sort of poem, a man who obviously had a lot to say about lots of things, but it was an extraordinary piece of writing with no absolute structure in it, and I just couldn't resist it. I loved it. I think a lot to do with Maxine. I mean, Maxine obviously knew about a character she wanted to base it on, and someone she had done a lot of research on. And obviously, the way the writing was written with Tony, and Tony and Maxine are really good friends, so they sort of empowered each other. I mean, Tony Pitts, as a writer, is also a very sort of bombastic Yorkshireman who's got lots of sides to him, and he's a poet, and he's also a big baby, and he's also a big North and Yorkshire macho man. And in a way, what Maxine could see was a female version of Tony that she could play, and in a way that's what she did. But she also based it on a real comedian called Marty Kane, who survived in the 60s and 70s and 80s as a comedy woman, who was big in England at that time, who was trying to work in the world of that sexist, slightly really appalling humour that went on at that time. When anything in the 50s, 60s, 70s would be almost, streets would be black. The little villages would be covered in soot. Those mining towns or those Yorkshire towns would have been, the brickwork would have been black. But obviously everything's cleaned up. Everything's been cleaned, so everything looks a bit like it's culturally perfect, you know. So in a way, we had to sort of put some of the dirt back into it, but equally we wanted to give Maxine the colour red, and it was a sort of homage to the red balloon, and it was almost a homage to her character. The red was her colour. In terms of the other colours, and we shot it on, we shot it digitally, but we shot it on anamorphic lenses, so we were trying to create a certain look, and then we were trying not to make it look like it was working class drama, dingy, dirty, kitchen sink. We wanted to give it a sort of heightened look, so it had a fantasy feel to it, had a fairy tale feel to it. We're hoping we'll get a French distributor. We haven't got one yet. I mean, the film's been released in the UK, and it's been released in Australia and New Zealand, and it's got a sort of, the marketplace, there's an HBO/American connection with it. But we have, I mean, I'd love it to be more, I mean, we felt there was a market in Europe for it, and we'd love it to be in Europe. In a teacup. I don't like it in a mug, if that's any help. I like it in a proper teacup, and I only have one sugar, but I hardly ever drink tea. I drink tea maybe once a day, and I drink coffee all the time, I'm afraid.